Several years ago, no one really expected that a relaunch of Heroscape would ever actually happen. So what do gamers do? Well, they're going to go ahead and create their own game that kind of honors that game's legacy. And today, that is the product we're taking a first look at. This is Time Strike: Shadow of Fear by Adventure Together Games. Now, I want to be clear that even though this game definitely draws a lot of inspiration from Heroscape, you'll see that here in just a moment, it is definitely a unique product, and it differentiates itself in many ways from that old Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, Avalon Hill, Renegade Game Studios tabletop game. So let's dive in and take a look at what is actually in this box to get things started. Time Strike has two distinct but related products to it. Over here you have the Source Terrain system, which is the game board that you play on, and then you have Shadow of Fear, which is the initial starter set for the game. Now, if you really want to enjoy the game properly, you do have to buy both these products for a retail value of a little bit over $200 US. And it may seem odd that the terrain is not included in the starter set, but what Adventure Together Games is trying to go for is the source system. They want this to be a game board system that essentially any game developer can use to base their game off of. Unless things have changed since the last time we talked to them on the TOV Live podcast, the source system tiles are released under a sort of open source style license that any game developer can go ahead and create a game and say that it's compatible with the source terrain system. The only caveat being is that you have to purchase the terrain pieces from Adventure Together. Alright, so let me slide the terrain out of the way here, and we'll take a look at the contents of the starter set. The first thing we have here is a lore book, and it's pretty extensive. It's a hardcover book, and there's quite a bit of story to it. I haven't read through it yet, but if you're interested in learning more about the background behind this Heroscape-ish like story, you're probably going to find a whole lot here in the lore book. Then you have the rule book itself. It's a soft cover rule book, and it clocks in at around, what is it at, 40 some pages? A little over 40 pages for the complete contents of the rules. And we'll break down the gameplay a little bit later in the video. Now, to be fair, you don't technically have to have the source terrain system to play this game. This game does have like this little pop-out board that you can play the game on. It's kind of small. So if you really want to enjoy the game, you need the source terrain system. But technically, you can play this game just right out of the box. Next up, we have some cardboard punch-out tiles to represent different types of terrain, as well as minerals and resources the players can collect on the board. Then we get to the actual miniatures. These are soft plastic miniatures, and they do look pretty darn cool. But given the fact that they are soft plastic, they kind of fall into the category of your epic board game and miniatures. So they're not going to be going toe-to-toe with companies like Games Workshop, Atomic Mass Games' hard plastic miniatures, or any sort of resin, whether that be cast or 3D printed resin miniatures. But given they are soft plastic, they're going to be a little bit more durable than those particular types of figures. Now you've got, I believe this is the giant bad guy right here. I think this is a beast that you can ride, and then you've got a mixture of heroes that you play as well as other characters that inhabit the world. And the miniatures you see right here are all the miniatures that come in the box. One thing I don't have with my set of Time Strike pieces are any of the premium miniatures. I want to show you some of these on their website. Now, what looks like you get here are pre-painted miniatures, but these are actually not pre-painted. They are pre-colored 3D printed resin miniatures. And they're not going to be like weird abominations of what you see here, like we've seen recently with certain pre-painted miniature products. They're probably going to look pretty darn close to exactly what you see here, because they're essentially a process of using multicolored inks to blend colors together as the miniature is 3D printed out. So this is definitely an interesting technology that we haven't seen very often when it comes to tabletop gaming miniatures, probably because they are fairly expensive at $34.99 for 3 small miniatures. But it is definitely a technology that's going to be playing a much greater role in the coming years for the tabletop game industry. Diving under this set here, you have some terrain for the game, just little walls that provide a little bit of additional changes to the battlefield, and these obviously work with the source tile system. Several sizes of cards. The big size is a combination of kind of quick reference cards as to how various mechanics in the game works. And then when you dig down a little bit further, you start getting into boss rule cards. So for using this big guy in the game, they're essentially the AI for how he moves and his monster moves and things like that. Below the big cards, you get to the small card deck, which are a combination of items and artifacts, as well as fish. One of the aspects of this game that's, I guess, kind of important part of it is your characters can fish. They go to the water, toss a line in, and bring fish out, because there is like a whole resource gathering system to this game. Down in the bottom here, we're going to go ahead and find the various character cards that represent mostly characters you can play as the game, but there's also a card in here for the guy that you can ride and mount as like a monster you can ride on, and of course then the boss monster as well also has a card down here. Then finally down here at the bottom, you've got some dice. You have some custom D6 dice for combat related. You have wooden cubes for tracking some of the various elements here on the particular character cards. And then you've got a pair of D20s that are used. And that is the entire contents for Time Strike Shadow of Fear. And of course, you can see here there are 2 empty pockets, which I don't think I'm missing anything from the game. They're probably for storing game pieces like these things you punch out here, or possibly to give you a little bit of expansion capacity when you go ahead and buy additional figures or whatever you may get for this game in the future. This is one of their standard starter terrain sets. I chose Tundra because you can pick between a couple different biomes, and let's take a look at what's actually included on the back. So you've got a total of 282 hex spaces, and you've got some board edges, a couple larger pieces of the terrain, and then a whole bunch of individual 1 hex pieces that you can use to go ahead and build a layout similar to what you see over here. Also on the website, they advertise that this comes with a carry-in case, but the carry-in case is just the box because the box has a handle to it. All right, let's go ahead and get this open and take a look at some of the terrain pieces. Since you can buy individual terrain pieces separately, what you actually have in this large box is a whole bunch of individually packed products. For example, this is the 24 hex pack. So at first glance, these things do kind of look like Heroscape tiles, but they are noticeably smaller. Here's a Heroscape 24 hex tile, and it's probably a good 10-20% larger than what you get with the source system. And the other thing is, while these pieces do fit together, they don't snap together where Heroscape tiles do. You can kind of move them around and pull them apart kind of easily. Therefore, you have to latch them together either with multi-levels of terrain, like that holds them together, or of course you have these black edge pieces that make an entire battlefield that will then keep everything contained. Let's open up some of the individual tiles and see how those look. And they work just like you expect they would. You can just stack them on top of each other and build up columns and whatnot. There's a whole stack of them just like that. All right, well, that's a basic gist of how the terrain works for the source system. Let's head back to the studio and talk about the gameplay a little bit. Now, we'll talk about the rules of this game here in just a little bit, but first I wanted to remind you guys that I have my own crowdfunding campaign coming up here in the not too distant future for my next set of 3D printable Fractured Colony gaming miniatures. You can find a link to the campaign down in the description below, or head over to fracturedcolony.com and find the link there, and you can sign up to get notified when the campaign launches. This guy right here is one of the miniatures in the new set. This is the Griffin Anti-Aircraft Interceptor. It's a surface-to-air version of the original Griffin hover tank. All right, let's head back and take a look at the overview of this game's rules. Time Strike has 3 modes of gameplay. One is your skirmish, player versus player, pretty standard stuff. You have a boss battle royale, which is once again player versus player, but there's an AI boss running around the map that must be defeated. If that boss is not defeated, then all the players end up losing the game. And finally, you have a boss battle raid, which is entirely a single player or cooperative experience where you team up to take down the boss without fighting each other. Now, movement in this game is pretty straightforward, and it is similar to Heroscape. You move around a hex map, one movement point per hex space, and if you climb up additional elevation, well, that's going to cost you additional movement points. Now, there are a few interesting differences between this game and Heroscape, though. One which is kind of odd is that if you only move up one elevation in hex, it's still only one movement point, not two like Heroscape. It's just something that's different enough that's going to annoy me trying to keep these two rule sets separate. Also, moving through water is a little bit different in this game, so be sure to be aware of that difference as well. This game also introduces the concept of falling, where if you go ahead and drop off too high of a cliff, you're going to take some damage, which is something to be aware of, but it also introduces some interesting tactical options. Basics of combat is pretty similar to Heroscape. You have a line of sight point where characters see from, and you have to try to see if you can basically see the silhouette of the character according to how it's defined on their character card. Now, true line of sight is probably the worst mechanic in the last 20 years of tabletop gaming because it's just an utter mess to try to sort out. And using sort of like a stand-in system similar to what you see in Star Wars Legion or War Machine would have been a much better way to go and cleans up true line of sight a whole heck of a lot. And this is especially true if you ever want to release miniatures where the players can kind of customize or pose themselves, and just removes a lot of ambiguity and make things go a lot smoother. When it comes to resolving attacks, you're rolling dice, counting up your hits. The defender rolls their defense dice to see how many hits they can cancel out, and then the resulting difference is applied as damage to the target. And once all the hit points are basically removed from the target, well, that character is now defeated. And characters, of course, have an assortment of special abilities that may augment or replace their attacks, affect their movement, and all in all, just make them more tactically interesting when compared to other miniatures available in the game. One of the more interesting differentiations between this game and Heroscape is the action system. Characters can spend energy throughout their turn to take actions. So things like fishing and mining, which allow you to collect resources off the map, and those resources can be spent in various ways later on in the game, in kind of a system that feels very similar to Minecraft or in some ways Fortnite, if you're familiar with those video games. You have the ability to trade items with characters, which you get items by punching people in the face. It's kind of odd, but that's how this game kind of works. There's a way you can climb on top of that super boss monster. I'm not entirely sure what that does, but apparently that's explained later on when you actually fight the monster. And then there's an action called Contest. I think personally grapple or wrestle would have been a better name for this, but there's essentially a strength test between the two characters, which can result in characters being forcibly moved around, or in some cases pushed off a cliff, which is always a fun option. Then you can also have actions to essentially tame a monster and then ride it as a mount, or some of the abilities on the character card require you to take an action to do so. On the combat side of things, there's a concept called luck, where one of the attack successes on a die and one of the defense successes on a die are colored separately. And if you roll that particular symbol during a combat result, you've got a lucky hit, and that affects certain special abilities and things along those lines that can change exactly what happens during the combat. Characters can equip items and artifacts, which may give them additional abilities or make them more powerful in certain ways. There are two other things characters can do that are not explicitly actions, which is build a wall. It definitely feels like Fortnite. And then there are craft items, which are just seem like ways to reduce damage or reduce bad things from happening to you, taking other types of actions in the game, like falling off a cliff. You can apparently magically build a hang glider and safely fall. Or you can build a fishing net, for example, to get a better chance, or I think it's actually a guaranteed success, on a fishing action. Now, if I pull out one of the character cards here, you're going to see one of the biggest differences between this game and Heroscape, which are all these little boxes right here. Now, this is where all those wooden cubes go that you saw during the unboxing, and they're used to factor in things like buffs, which make your character stats better, awakenings, which is a different type of buff that can happen during the game, and then you have curses, which can negatively impact your character's stats. Down here, there are a handful of different types of statuses your character can experience during the game, which impacts certain actions they can take or certain stats, things like that. And then exhausted simply goes ahead and marks this character has taken their turn. So that should give you some of the highlights of this game's rule system and a basic overview of what you can expect. I'll go ahead and make a battle report in the not too distant future of the solo play mode so we can see probably a little bit more in detail how some of the rules work. Now, there are a few oddities to this rules set that I wanted to mention. Some of the wording is kind of loose, I'll say. It's not that hard to figure out what's going on, but it's not quite as clean and simple as some of the other games out there that have been through a few revisions. And granted, it's definitely not as worse as the infamous "and so on" line that was in like 6th edition 40K or something like that. I'll make fun of that forever. There is one line that's a little confusing to me. I mean, maybe if I read it out loud, it'll make more sense. Talking about roads, so there's roads in the game that can speed up your movement. A unit on a road may use one movement to move and or climb any distance along that road. Now, I'm reading that as you can spend one movement to teleport along a road, but equally it may also just simply be trying to say that you can climb up any number of elevation spaces on between two road hexes, because the idea is the road is theoretically graded to make it easier to climb up, even though climbing up a 20% grade is pretty freaking difficult. More on that in a video in the not too distant future. So that's an example of one of the weirder wordings in the text of the rules. And another thing that kind of drives me crazy is the use of the word unit and character. Now, traditionally in tabletop gaming rules, character is singular, and a unit is composed of multiple characters or multiple models. But this game reverses that language for some weird reason. So a character refers to a single character card like this. However, some of the characters have multiple models to them, and those individual models are referenced as a unit. So each model is a unit. So that is absolutely annoying and the complete opposite of the rest of the tabletop gaming industry. But I think that's about it for pointing out some of the oddities. I think some of the things that aren't 100% clear will probably make more sense when I sit down and play the game. That's usually how these things work out. So we'll review that later on if I actually have any particular serious issues with the game. But all in all, that is about all I have to say today. So thank you guys all for watching. I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield, and be sure to head over to fracturedcolony.com to get more information about the upcoming crowdfunding campaign for my next set of 3D printable gaming miniatures. All right, I'll see you guys all next time.